Bonjour à tous. So thank you very much for joining us today. I'm your host. I'm Christophe Langlois, the Global FinTech and Developer Ecosystem Marketing Lead at Finastra. And this is another live meetups in our series around and during our hackathon. At the moment, we've got almost 4,000 participants from over 75 countries. And our goal this year is together to help to redefine finance for good. So please feel free to check us online and join that initiative. Today, we're going to talk about an extremely important topic, which is the topic of financial inclusion. And for those of you very aware of the scale of the challenge, even though we made a lot of progress in the last 10, 15 years, we still have roughly still a third of the adult population, so around 1.7 billion, who are still unbanked today, according to one study from a couple of years ago. Also, there's still a challenge in terms of gender gap, in terms of account ownership. So again, very important topic that we all need to help again deal with and give more access to banking solutions collectively. There's also a huge gap usually in the parts of the world where the towns are quite well deserved in terms of the coverage, urban centers and banks, but also, of course, people in more remote locations don't have access again to any banking services they might need to grow their business. Hence, of course, the importance of DFS, the digital financial services. But at the same time, financial inclusion is a great story and success story in Africa. We've got many examples, like, of course, M-Pesa, launched in Kenya back in 2007. And now the latest stats, I believe there's more than 37.4 million mobile wallets, and which gives 133% penetration of the adult population, which is always fascinating. And last but not least, very few people know, but I was born in Ivory Coast, in Côte d'Ivoire. So it's always a pleasure to see Côte d'Ivoire leading the digital financial services market in West Africa and converting money into mobile money more and more. Today, again, I'm honored to be the host and to have like three exceptional panelists. So let me introduce you to them very quickly. We've got, so ladies first, we've got Natacha Baumann. She's Program Director, Financial Inclusion and Circular Economy at BNP Paribas Personal Finance. So Natacha has a lot of course, experience and expertise in financial inclusion. BNP Paribas recently won an award for all their activities in that space. And BNP Paribas Personal Finance, I believe, also have a manifesto. One of the pillars of the manifesto is around financial inclusion. We've got also Bertrand, so Bertrand Omega, co-founder and CEO at CAC-BIMA. So Bertrand is based in Kenya. He co-founded the company a few years back. And CAC-BIMA is a Kenya-based insurance SAS platform for agent, brokers, micro-insurers, and insurers. And last but not least, from Nigeria, we've got Liyi Victor, who is the CEO at Glade. And Liyi, again, has spent, I think, a couple of years at least, working on Glade and building it from the ground up. And Glade is a Nigeria-based integrated digital business banking platform for sole traders, entrepreneurs, startups, and small businesses. So you see why I'm very excited today to have like three very different experts and champions to drive financial inclusion globally, and of course with a key focus on Africa. So now to start the conversation, which aims to be as engaging as possible, could you please all, so on individual basis, spend a few minutes to give us a quick overview of your activities, the ones of your company, and ideally give us also some kind of background information of overview of the situation in terms of driving financial inclusion in your country. Maybe ladies first. Can we start with Natacha?
If
the
you
floor
want,
is
yes.
yours, Natacha.
Christophe, thank you for your invitation. It's a pleasure for me to join this panel. Just maybe so that you know a little bit more about me, as Christophe mentioned, you have a strong link with Africa, and maybe I have a strong link with Asia. I spent about 10 years in Asia working for major retailers, and now I've been working for BNP Personal Finance for about 10 years. So just in terms of context, because you mentioned that the bank BNP Paribas, we have recently won the World Best Bank for Financial Inclusion for Euromoney 2020. So we're very proud of that. Personal finance is a part of BNP. So maybe it's just to give you a quick snapshot on that. We are present in 33 countries. Basically, our activity is credit financing, loans, and through B2C and B2B activities. We have 25 million customers across the world. We represent roughly 13% of BNP. And in terms of loan, so it's about more than 100 billion outstanding. So of course this year it's a bit different. So in my role within the bank, as I'm passionate about sustainability, diversity, but also a big problem solver, I actually have two roles. And you'll see that it will help probably in the conversation we'll have. One role is about digital transformation and innovation across some of the countries, including Africa. So probably is the reason I'm here. And the other one is leading financial inclusion and circular economy programs at a global level for PF, personal finance. These two topics obviously are very relevant. Climate change and growing inequalities are more and more to the forefront, especially with the recent pandemic. And it's always been in the DNA of BNP Personal Finance to help consumption, to boost consumption, to help customers manage their projects. And it's true from a banker perspective, we are one of the entity where our customers are probably the most vulnerable to the crisis. We are the ones probably more in their daily life present for them across the world. We believe we have a key role to play in helping individuals also having a sustainable consumption. That's why I mentioned climate and inequalities, because I think it's a great opportunity for us to see how we drive, of course, consumption and financial health, but also make it in a sustainable way. So you mentioned the manifesto we have. So Personal Finance has released a new manifesto. Inside this manifesto, there is a clear purpose for the entity, which is promoting access to more responsible and sustainable consumption to support our customers and partners, because as I just mentioned, we work a lot with retailers on the B2B business. And this is very strong purpose. And so our activity and our journey starts on this new purpose, which is very recent. It's this year. We know that it's a journey. It will take time, but we're really motivated on this purpose. And we are building a roadmap all together with the countries to be better every day. To come maybe a little bit on Africa, I have one strong focus on South Africa. We acquired a company called RCS in 2014. We offer mainly consumer finance through our name, RCS, but also through major retailers, which are in South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana. We are based in Cape Town, and it's a big entity actually, because sometimes we think it's small entities that European banks have. Here it's a big entity. We have about 2,000 employees, 3 million customers, and we about 1 billion euro outstanding on loans. So we have started some projects, especially in South Africa, around financial inclusion. I think we will come back on that. I don't want to disclose too much at this stage, but I think it would be good to share with you our thoughts and where we stand and what we try to do.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for the intro there. Excellent. And we'll get back to that, of course, during the conversation, because it's going to be some fascinating insights and experience you will share with us, no doubt. Second, maybe Liyi from Glade. Would you mind again doing the same? So talk about you, Glade, and the context in Nigeria, please. You're muted. I'm trying to unmute you. But...
Yeah, thank you so much, Christophe.
Welcome.
I'm very excited to be here and to also give my contribution to this event as well. So I'm Liyi Victor. I'm the co-founder and the CEO at Glade. But actually, I started my career as well in the banking sector as well, providing a lot of valuable product for small business and also individuals. So, but currently what we're doing at Glade, as a fintech company, we're building a digital banking for small businesses, which enable small business to have access to finance, have access to also other market as well. So being that you also realize that the small businesses are the backbone of African economy entirely, but there's a lot of they're really kind of financially excluded entirely. They don't have access to the services, the banking side or any financial service for them to also have grow their businesses. So in line with that, that's the key role we are playing for them to have access to banking services without any challenge or without the necessity for them to go through the hassle and bustle of going to any bank time or fill out any document at all. So we make it easy for them to open a bank account, make local and international transfer, accept local and international payment from anywhere in the world. Also currently giving them access to loan for them to grow their businesses. So in time of also equality, like Natacha mentioned earlier, so which presently we just closed some partnership with a finance company here in Nigeria, which we have access over 250 million naira to be able to provide loan for small businesses, and to also help the gender equality. So 70% of this loan was actually targeted to the women in businesses, or the women that play a key role in businesses. That is there for us to help them with this loan, and also to make it easy for them to be able to pay back without any necessary high charges as well. So currently, we have over 2,000 small businesses on our platform, which we are providing excellent banking services for them, not like and of course, which they also help them to grow their businesses without any stress. So in terms of financial inclusion, so our role, what we make basically is first thing, you find out, okay, the education of the financial education here is really, really important for this, for people to be able to key into what financial inclusion means. So what we try to do first is arrange a training, either with the support of other partners as well, for them to know how the financial service can be able to help their businesses, and as well to be able to also listen to them on how we can be able to meet their demand and also provide solution to their services. So we started as an online banking, but now what we are also rolling out, which we are testing, is USSD banking as well, which because the most part of the most parts of the rural area don't really have access to strong internet banking, so make access to these banking services via the USSD. So our goal entirely is to see how this small business can be able to also be strong and also have access to any financial services for them to grow their businesses without any difficulty at all. Thank you so much, Crystal, and once again, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you very much, Liyi. Great introduction. And again, we'll have a chance to refine during the conversation and talk on some of the important topics. Last not least, Bertrand. So the floor is yours. Please tell us more about you, Kakbima, Kenya, everything.
Thank you. Thank you, Christophe. It's a pleasure to be on this panel as well. Great introduction from my colleagues. I don't even know how to match that. As mentioned earlier, my name is Bertrand Omuka. I've had a kind of a checkered experience, and a large portion of it has been within the insurance space, logistics, and risk management aspect of it. And some of the challenges and experiences seen over the period is what led me to co-found Kakbima. And essentially, Kakbima is a software service platform that enables transparent access to insurance solutions anywhere, anytime, and for everyone. As most of you have seen within the African space, access to insurance still remains a big challenge, and largely is because of one, the distribution channels, and also the products that are in place. So overall, as Kakbima, unlike a majority of the insurtechs within the space, we are focused on building a foundational framework through which insurance products solution and services can be offered to consumers conveniently, but more importantly, transparently. So we're operating on a B2B2C model. On our platform, we are onboarding hundreds of agents and brokers who then use our platform to digitize their service offerings and their product offerings, but also on the insurance company side, where they can not only reach out to the untapped markets that are not being reached in the traditional distribution channels, but also be able to see what's happening within the market, be it direct purchases or sales made through the agent and broker channels, such that consumers are able to be served efficiently, but we can also use the data that we are managing to influence new products, new services, and new solutions that can actually better reach to the consumers. I mean, we've tested a couple of very groundbreaking models and products. And when you talk about financial inclusion, insurance usually doesn't take a lot of prominence, because we mostly look at financial inclusion as access to credit, access to banking services, but insurance becomes a key component. And some of the solutions we're looking to roll out, giving just an example, what you're doing with some communities, even in Tanzania, where you're looking at tapping into the social community channels, social networks, to launch insurance solutions, where insurance can be bought as a community and then used to control the losses that could be experienced within the community. As a breadwinner, you need to protect the revenue source or the income earner. So there are different models from which you're looking at from an insurance perspective to enhance financial inclusion, and possibly be talking on some of them as we go on the forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bertrand. Thank you all. So if you don't mind, actually, I mean, there's so many things to cover. So I'd be keen, as always, to focus on, despite talking a lot about digital financial services, when you step back, it's all about the persons behind it. It's all about the customer. It's all about the agents usually, and it's all about the cash as well, physical things, right? So the first questions I'd like to talk about, if it's okay with you all, is it true, first of all, my understanding is one of the first key major obstacles to driving digital financial services is the attitude of some people. When I say attitude, a lot of people are still, I think, unconvinced or unaware of the value and of using like digital financial services and the security aspects as well. So there's a bit of a friction or misunderstanding there. So all of you, but maybe we start with Liyi, if you don't mind. I'd like maybe Natacha to bring a broader picture at the end, you know, like because you've got access to so many different markets, especially South Africa, which is much bigger. Maybe can you talk about how you deal with that? So the lack of understanding, for lack of better words, and again, the necessity or the lack again of financial education. So you mentioned it, Liyi, a bit in your intro. Would you mind tell us more? How do you manage to, as a fintech, to do that? And who should take part of it to help you reach out to people and convince them of the value and of the trusted service they should use through Glade, for instance?
Thank you so much, Christophe, for that. Well, I remember when we started in terms of the challenge, trying to get people to understand how the digital service is going to benefit their businesses. So a lot of these businesses kind of rely on the brick and mortar. So what we try to do for us is more like education, to educate them on how this is going to benefit their businesses. First is about the convenience. Second thing is also about the accessibility, isn't it? It's 100% online. There's no closing time and so on and so forth. Then another question most of them now keep asking about, how is their money secure, isn't it? So hope being online, with all the issue of the online fraud going on. So how is their money also being secure? So which will also explain to them the kind of security measure we put in places on our system, and also the insurance policy also covering their money on our system. So, but the most important thing which we notice is that most of these businesses, really the ones that have little education and also abroad, okay, they are also tired of all the brick and mortar, isn't it? They want something they can be able to do without wasting time. So the more we try to give more education, the more they also be able to key into the places. So what we realize is, okay, they really want to use these services, but they have one problem: how to use it and how secure it is. So we now start from the how to use it first, isn't it? We let them understand, okay, these are the steps, these are what you need, and these are the steps on how you're also going to use it. The second thing will also come about to let them know how their money is being secure. Basically, no matter how English you're going to speak with them about your PCID, about your 256 security level, and so on, most of them don't understand. So one thing is about what also Bertrand mentioned earlier, in kind of which is going to also benefit them in terms of insurance. So let them understand, look, your money is being secure. Even whatever happens, you can also need to access your money tomorrow because your money is being insured. So that gives them a lot of at least cushion the fear for them to be able to also to trust in the system and for them to also be able to key into the places as well. So then what I also believe that is going to also drive this accessibly for every player in the market, basically, I'm not sure anyone can do it alone because you also find out, okay, there's a lot of other agencies that maybe have access to this database, they also have access to this network of these businesses. So partnering with these people also help us a lot. We let them understand, look, this is what we're trying to achieve, and this is what we want to also try to do to get to these people in your network. Maybe like the government are certain in charge of the small and medium business scale as well. So from there, seminar was held, also training happened. So from that place, then when we did those training. So it's more like a wildfire. Someone began, okay, people that attend the training, they now start going back to also inform other people, okay, we believe the digital is the best place to go, and so on and so forth. So from there, we start having some increment as well.
So no, thank you very much. We agree it's a collective effort which is needed, because the more people are trusting, and feeling safe using digital financial services, the more they're going to use your respective services. So it serves the whole industry basically and the whole population. So and at the government level as well, it's important to be very involved. Bertrand, maybe, and again after Natacha. But Bertrand, would you mind giving us your take on that education of the market from a Kenyan and / insurance standpoint?
Yes, I think just borrowing from what Liyi was saying, the financial inclusion puzzle and attributed to, of course, the social and psychological challenges around financial inclusion. So if those ones are not addressed, the uptake is still going to be a challenge. So the question would be then, to what end goal are we looking at financial inclusion? So for instance, from education perspective, and I'll give an example. If most African families, or Kenyan families for that matter, there's a high dependency ratio. So you find one in a family of 5, probably there's only one breadwinner. And if you just typically go to this person and tell them, hey, it's very important to your family, you need to get life insurance. The psychological nature and social nature of our Kenyan market, for instance, or African nature is you don't necessarily buy life insurance, you attribute it to a lot of superstition. So if you're educating this person in terms of why is it important, why this is needed, therefore, this solution is more important towards not only protecting your family in case something happens to you as a breadwinner, but also ensuring that you retain the same level of income should you, let's say, have an injury or a long-term challenge that you might not be able to continuously earn. Then that puts education at a very central point. So inclusion means different things to different people. So if it's an NGO, it's more focused on opening the financial markets. If it's a fintech firm, they're more focused on lending, access to credit. But the question then is, how is it sustainable, giving access to credit? And this person, we had a recent case where a lot of Kenyans were blacklisted because of mobile lending, because they're not paying, and someone is being credit blacklisted for borrowing less than $1 worth of income. But then, how are you impacting this person in the long term? So education, looking at the social structures and enabling a long-term sustainable approach to access to finance, and of course expanding what is the meaning of financial inclusion, tapping into the social ecosystem, going beyond what I would normally say the typical 3 pillars of inclusion, which is finance, credit, payments. So then going further down the value chain to make sure this is not only more inclusive in the literal sense, but also sustainable and long term. That's why then
Yeah, that's very, it's a very good point.
Offering comes into play, educational aspects come into play, social structures come into play. So that
No, thank you very much. And again, we're going to deep dive on a few elements you just mentioned, especially the ethics side of the situation linked to mobile lending and instant loans and stuff like that in a second. But last but again, not least at all, Natacha, because you bring something different as well, the global view, exposure, and being from a large bank. So could you please share your views on that topic?
Yeah. Well, it's a very large subject that you're raising, and accessibility and education at the same time. What we see in terms of education, it's when we started to do workshops with the South African team, looking at the trends, looking at what we can do, because on the innovation side, one thing came out very quickly is education, but education from, even at the school level, to say what is finance, what is budgeting. But quite surprisingly, when we did a survey in the OECD countries, we saw that only 1 in 10 students perform well on the test on financial budgeting. Not skyrocket science, basic making decision on their budget. So which means I think that we have a role to play as companies so that people understand what is it to make an expense. And even if I would ask my kids about what is an interest rate, I think they don't learn that at school. So I think there is a piece of education. We've done platforms in 3 countries in Europe, and I think this could be something that we want to expand on financial education. It's called Budget Responsable, Budget Responsable. And it works really well. And it was really interesting in the COVID situation when everybody was locked down. This platform performed well because even teachers used it to do that piece of education. I think it's really interesting piece, because we're hitting here also people who don't understand might go to the informal market. And the informal market is usually usury rates. You speak about ethics, and it's what we see. In South Africa, 70% of the population is banked. So it's a kind of exception in Africa, but only 13% have credit cards. But 38 million have mobile phones. So there's probably something to do better and different. And what is very specific also in South Africa, and I think it's relevant here, is a question of trust. Because we see that many South African use one scheme which is called the stokvel. It's kind of community saving and community loans. So it's excluding the banks, because they think they need trust. They need to trust each other. And I've worked with a startup bootcamp and accelerator and other accelerator programs of startups in South Africa. We see that this stokvel story comes up a lot because of trust, because in insurance side or the saving side, people work a lot about trusting the advice of their peers and their family.
And sorry, yes, I'm online. Sorry. Thank you very much, and that leads me to. I wanted to cover something, but let's switch. Actually, I want to talk about the route to market and the growth. How can you successfully grow a digital financial services organization like a fintech? There's a lot of surveys, and usually what we see is the most important factors to attract new digital financial services users, which mirrors what you said, Natacha. Usually is 1, peer endorsement, right? So people 2, highly visible agent network. It's going to be important. I'd like to talk about agents in a second. 3, strong brand. 4, customer education. So all the usual suspects. But again, the word of mouth is very important, like it is in other markets, but maybe even more there. So how do you, the 3 of you with the 3 different perspectives, how do you manage to do that actually to be perceived as trustworthy and compelling enough to really drive customer advocacy, and then on the back of it to grow your business significantly? So that concept, Natacha, would you like to share on, again, peer endorsement and what you need to do as a financial service provider to really generate that enthusiasm among your customer base?
I think as a big bank, it's a lot easier than for a fintech. I must admit, and so we come to one point that we probably develop later, because we speak a lot about data. You speak a lot digital. We speak about data. We see everywhere in the world regulation around data, and when it's not regulated anyway, it becomes regulated. Maybe you heard about what's going on in Asia. They start to regulate a lot the data sharing on the platforms and so on. So people are very conscious about that. So we really have to be very clean on the data handling and very clean on transparency on what we use and how we use it, but it's our challenge to make people understand that if we don't have the proper data, we make the wrong decision. So it's a kind of trade-off, trust can be built between us together. And from the fintech side, I've tried multiple POCs and MVPs with fintechs and startups in South Africa, early stage, more mature ones. I think partnerships with smaller players and big players like us make sense because we're stronger together. Maybe we are very slow and very compliant and very legal, looking at legal stuff and so on, and very slow. But on the other hand, we are more trusted. So I think it's partnerships that are the solutions here. Part of the solution.
Of course. No, it makes sense. And the focus on I'd say again, I'm interested, especially from Bertrand and Liyi. Of course, what I call rational trust, the trust like being like a financial institution, securing the data, and so on and so forth. But I'm also interested in the emotional trust, if you wish, like which generates the customer advocacy, or that side of it. So thank you again very much, Natacha. It's great insight. And we'll talk about data a bit later. Bertrand, for instance, would you mind sharing that? How do you achieve that, your organization, to again convince and make people so enthusiastic about the quality of the solutions you provide, then they do your job and they recommend your services around them? And how complicated is that for you?
It is. I think, easy? Natacha, it's not easy. I think Natacha even attributed to it. So the bigger the organization, the bigger the brand, the more trusted they are, but also the more difficult to work with them, because of course there are certain criteria for who they choose to work with and how you plug into the ecosystem. But once you're able to plug into the ecosystem, the work becomes slightly easier. And it even becomes more difficult from an insurance perspective, because these are trust business. You're selling trust. So whatever solutions you're offering then has to be trusted. That's why for us, our approach has been slightly different. We're looking towards addressing the technical and technological challenges that hinder access to insurance. So then you're going to these insurance companies and fintech providers, telling them, hey, look, you don't need to invest in high-end technology towards insurance. We are building a framework from which you can launch and co-create some of these solutions. But of course, it takes time. It takes time to build. It takes time for them to allow you in the ecosystem. And now, of course, the data sharing protocols, Kenya recently enacted a law, a Data Protection Act, that then, of course, then increases the threshold of compliance. So from our point of view, and since you're a multi-sided platform where you're onboarding both the brokers, insurance companies, and at the same time the customer side, so we are kind of acting as a mediator. So we not only need trust from the owners of the insurance products, but also the consumer. So, and the reason how we've been able to achieve that and keep breaking the barriers is first giving the strongest value proposition to the consumer, the policyholder, enabling transparent access to the insurance, breaking down the complex insurance terms to this consumer, so that then they're using them now from a ground up kind of proposition. Then they're pushing the agent, why you not on Dr. Bima, because it's more convenient for me to access your solutions, file my claims and all that. But also at the top level, we're also urging insurance companies, say, look, if your agents are more accountable and your distribution channels are more open, you're able to attract more clientele. So it's more of a balancing act between the both ends of the chain.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you. And we will talk again about that. So hold on a second for in terms of agents, but because I think it's a fascinating element within the jigsaw here. So thank you very much, Bertrand. And Liyi, so if you don't mind, like answering the same question, how do you create again that advocacy to and let your customers basically do the talk, speak on your behalf? And I think it's linked to the experience, of course, you provide to your user, your customers. Because one of the things, I guess, one of the key challenges to using DFS is if it takes too long, for instance, for a small entrepreneur to apply for a loan, that's going to impact his business quite a bit, or their business quite a bit, right? So the experience is extremely important. So what's your take on that again? How to drive advocacy, and how challenging is that for you?
All right, thank you so much, Chris. How actually to drive advocacy from our own stand of view, basically, apart from building an excellent product. One thing I also came to realize that building a strong brand, or maybe also trust, it really takes time. So what we now come to understand basically is empathy, customer empathy, isn't it? Because a lot of these issues to come back to, they want someone that can understand them. They want someone that have a feeling of what they do. So as long as you can have that empathy, providing the excellent customer services, of course, these people will be happy and will also be able to talk about your product. So I will not want to talk into that internet transformation, but one thing we realized within that, about some 4 months back from July to now, is that we put a lot of focus on customer services. And I also believe that is one thing that also drive our key growth entirely. We just make sure, because whatever it takes, there's nothing left on the table, even after closing of businesses, right? At least we just want to make them happy. So from there, they were able to also talk about that. So we believe doing that, of course, we are creating a strong brand for ourselves. They get to trust us, of course, and they also keep talking about talking about our product to distribute it properly. Thank you.
Thank you. So basically, we all agree it helps, of course, if you provide a great experience and great customer service support as well. And people are more likely, of course, to use your services and promote them around you. And on that topic,
if I may
sure,
yeah,
Natacha.
if I may add a point, I think it's of course exceptional cases, but in a time of crisis like we have today, you build also trust if you're there when they really need you. I mean, we're a consumer credit company. We do business. We try to sell credit cards, loan, and so on. We also have to be here when the customers struggle. So during this pandemic, we have postponed a lot of payments for the customers. And I think if we do that proactively without asking people to call in and say, hey, I'm in trouble, you understand they're in trouble, and you anticipate, and you capacity, again, it's a lot around data to predict and to propose solutions. I think this also builds trust, because they will remember that you were at their side also when they were fragile, vulnerable, even especially when it's a temporary situation and a crisis situation.
It's brilliant points. Of course, no, you're totally right. The proof is in the pudding, and it's not just being there, when they don't really need it, but of course, when someone needs it, and they are their worst in terms of the economic situation, and it's extremely important. And the insurance business is the same as well, in a lot of ways, of course. So thank you very much, Natacha. Which before then we talk about agents, which again is a topic I find fascinating. So please leave that just for a few minutes. To your point, actually, then Natacha, I had a question as well. Because it's quite interesting and very important. What's a good price then? What's a good pricing model for digital financial services? And do you think there might be risks as well, like when we talk mobile lending or instant loans, the risk of, because you don't necessarily have very well financially educated people, to put them in more trouble, basically, than they were before? I'm not talking you, of course, as an organization, but what's your view on that pricing and the ethics, basically, of instant loans and mobile lending? Do you have a view on that you could share today? Or Natacha, or who wants to talk about it first?
Well, I can take the point as you mentioned big banks, but the
not
sometimes
just big. Sorry, apologies. Not just big banks in that instance, but what's your view on the? Yeah.
Well, the game is always to say to be sustainable, we need to combine both inclusion and profitability. So it's always a we're not philanthropic company, so we need to combine both. One thing we could hide behind is a regulation, because we have cap rates in many countries, especially in Europe. This will come sooner or later in the countries where we have very high rates and it's being regulated. China was unregulated. It's getting regulated. We see it in South Africa as well. So anyway, I think the informal market is still very high priced and it's getting people into trouble. I was mentioning the pilot test we're doing in South Africa. We're running a project, we called it Credit Vitality. And the first pillar really of that project is to look at our current customer base and how do we sell. Why customers where we said, yes, you can be granted that loan, why on earth are they going into trouble? Is it temporary trouble? Did they forget? Or is it structural problems? Maybe something happened in their life. Is it education issues? And so, because our purpose, of course, is to have as less risk as possible. The rates only go higher because we need to compensate the risk. So, we have to build that virtuous circle where we grant loans to only people who can repay, and be able to predict when there is a difficulty and find solutions. And here is where currently, I must admit, we still need to work a lot, is finding solution that is outside our scope, because when people hit structural problems, they lose their jobs, they lose a relative, they get ill. This you can't predict, basically. And here, where do we find as a solution? Because not any price would compensate that. So we need to build partnerships, probably. We need to think out of the box. And this would be really one of my challenge with the team in South Africa, to say, how do we find those solutions?
Thank you. And again, I knew and I was expecting, of course, BNP Paribas Personal Finance to be, of course, on top of those challenges and hard at work to try to even improve. And I'm sure you're already probably leading on that front. But in other markets, like, again, for instance, in Nigeria, again, what's a good how difficult was it to price your services? Let's put it that way. And do you see a lot of potential side effects, again, like from other competitors, which maybe are not as how do you say, transparent in terms of pricing model, and put more strains on potential customers? What do you think, Liyi?
Yes, thank you so much, Christophe. Yes, the truth is, in as much as everyone to build a very quality product above price is also a determinant to every business. So because the people that are going to use it, are they going to be able to afford it? So what we do basically in Glade, just to make sure our price are transparent as much as possible. Whatever you want to make use of, whatever you want to make use of, you see the price, you know what you're getting into. So without anything hidden as well. So, and in terms of price as well, we also identify we now have a lot of category to be able to also help some businesses, isn't it, like maybe we also support other financial service businesses through our API, open banking APIs as well. So what we make for those people, for them to also be able to have access to profit or more income, isn't it, not to see us as their competitors. So what we do, we also have a different price to them, which is generally from the different from the one generally in the market which we offer. So this also helps them to be able to also rely, to also trust them most. Okay, these guys are kind of our partners, not really our competitors as well. So as I mentioned earlier, price is also, in as much as everyone is playing the product need to be strong, which is also good. But trust me, one thing I came to realize is also price is determined, especially in Nigeria here. So just because of maybe a 1 cent, someone can decide to lead your product. But as well, when you have a good product and you also have a very affordable price, and I think everything will work in hand for them as well here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Liyi. And Bertrand, do you want to add to the conversation on pricing and potential excess?
Yes, true. I think just adding to what Liyi and Natacha mentioned earlier, that there's a push right now towards just moving out of the traditional products under financial inclusion. So more of a holistic approach, as mentioning why this person is a loss of income, is it financially disabled,
Oh, no. Sorry, we're losing you.
or whatever it is, but the pricing, the solutions around it are actually within the market factors. It's a wider approach, and even dare say sometimes even financial inclusion in our market could be even enabling access to market by the local smallholder farmers that is able to commercialize whatever is producing on the farm. So it's going now beyond the traditional products, and the pricing would have to involve a lot of innovation around it and a lot of non-traditional solutions to achieve the maximum impact. Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you for that, Bertrand. Time flies. I can't believe it's already almost 50 minutes. I'd like to go back to, I think, one essential piece again of the puzzle, which is around distribution and the network of agents, because in lots of markets in Africa and other parts in the world, people believe that customer acquisition is really reliant on agents, and they're key to get and nurture some active customers. So, and when you talk about an agent strategy, usually we think about a few challenges or components. One is sourcing. So how do we find the right agents? So the recruitment strategy, where they're based as well. We need a good network management. We need to be able to incentivize your agents and have the right technology to enable them. One part of the technology, as Natacha mentioned, is also a clever use of data to be able to empower them and give them data-driven, basically like instructions or statistics. So, I mean, and that's a huge topic on its own. But if I step back, I say, how complicated is it? Let's say if we start with you, Natacha. So I guess recruitment and finding the right way, the best strategy to reach out to your end market and users, and what's a good agent? Do you have a definition for a good agent or a good agent workforce?
I have mainly two channels for our activity. One is our B2B, B2B2C channels, which are retailers, major retailers. It's the salespeople within the retailers who are doing the job. So it's a bit difficult to say what's a good agent and so on. I think good agent here, it's more the seller who has to be very transparent and not push something that the consumer doesn't need. And this comes back to one of my first points, saying now we also very conscious about climate. So it's also about sustainable consumption. It's just not selling something. It's to make sure it's done in a wise way. So the good agent would balance probably his own interest and the ones of the clients, and put the one of the clients first, obviously. Data comes here quite useful, because anyway we would see if there's some mis-selling practices. At some point we will see it. We will see it through the figures. We will see it through the channels. If in some stores there's some practices that we don't agree upon. The other channel is the B2C channel. We have a big activity on call centers, and our calls are monitored. So we're quite rich compared to a startup or fintech. So we are monitoring tools with, and we use technology. We use NLU technology to look at the scripts and to make sure the speech are according to the rules we've set. So I think we're quite privileged in here how to do that. Yeah. I can't hear you.
Hello, Christoph. It seems that you're mute.
We can't hear you.
Apologies. Yes, I say thank you very much. Actually, of course, you're in, as you said, a bit of a different position, like because of who you are in terms of maturity, in terms of technology enablement, and in terms of strategic view on achieving those things, plus the brand assets, which is a bit different. But thank you so much nonetheless. And maybe Liyi, then, for you in your space, how complicated is it, like, to recruit, find the right intermediaries, I guess? And what I'm going to throw to the mix as well is there's a lot of stats, and I should have started with you, Natacha, but you'll be maybe after Bertrand and Liyi. A lot of stats say that women are better agents than men. So would you mind sharing your views again on what's a good agent, Liyi, and women, the representation of women among intermediaries?
All right. Okay. Well, it's who are the good agents, but also supports your thoughts, right? I believe, personal belief, I'm not speaking for Glade, my personal belief that women are better in money management. I want to believe that, but I also have one or two experience in that area. But what we also, especially for Glade, when it comes to recruiting agents, so because of the peculiarity of where we are in Nigeria, you find, okay, the financial inclusion is also very, very not that widespread. So a lot of this, either the consumer or the business are also financially included. So having said that, either you're a big bank or you may be a fintech company, one thing we realize, okay, the people trust the member of their community better than you. So that's the reason why you find out, okay, a lot of the agent network services here is also making centers like also what I read over there in Kenya. So because you are there online, but Musa is here with me, so I trust him. So one of the ways for us to be able to distribute these banking services is through also the agent network, empowering them to also be able to provide banking services to their people. So, and in terms of how we came to, like I said, it's very difficult to understand a good agent, but from the data which we'll be able to gather from there, we'll be able to know who to trust more, who to support more, who to also be able to give more incentive. Because either way, we do not really leave all the agents for them to determine the pricing, isn't it? That's going to hurt the market. So we know, okay, because there's going to also, there must be a structure. There's also because people really have a lot of different buying power. So we have, when we recruit an agent, we let them know, okay, this is your incentive and this is what you have to give. So then the moment we notice from the data we're collecting and there's not a lot of transparency within the prices given, we'll be able to know, okay, this person have a trust issue. So we're engaging the further, we'll also continue the business if need be. If not, so we just look for a person that can be able to also to trust more to do it. So in terms of, incentive, right? What we do, okay, is we make it, it just has to be about the transaction volume. It's not about the income. That's the reason why we're in business, isn't it? So we also make sure, okay, the more transactions you make, also the more incentive you'll be able to provide. So what we also do in Glade is, okay, we also have, for me, everything, especially when it comes to the customer perspective, isn't it, is about the empathy. I've been there, I know the pain point, isn't it? So we make sure, okay, we provide them a top level services, because whenever they have an issue, because most people don't have that patience to be able to understand, okay, the issue basically is not about even the agent. Sometimes it might even be the bank network. So we also make sure, okay, we provide excellent service support, give excellent service support for this agent, for them to be able to provide a good banking service in that community. Thank you, Christoph.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Ali. So we lost you, Bertrand, for a second.
Yes.
Do you want to touch that as well? And then we're going to wrap up after you, so
yeah.
Please.
I think just one last point on the most financial services are largely mediated within the region. So I think Natacha mentioned it, that you must develop capacity to be able to pick out non-transparent transactions or mis-selling aspects, because it ends up giving a bad name within the industry, and then it negates the gains that are already being made towards financial inclusion, which is one of the biggest value propositions we're providing to insurers, where they're able to monitor the distribution network channels, what they're doing, how they're selling, and what products they're offering. Because once you monitor that, then you're able to sustainably, continuously improve the value proposition to the client. So that's a key point.
Yes, agreed. So thank you very much again. I'm sorry we'll have to wrap up now. I was really honored actually to have the privilege to be the host today with the three of you. Thank you so much for your insights. We talked about many things from experience to trust to how to recruit the right person, you leverage data to influence your decision, and again, even potentially incentivize your agents. We didn't really talk about the technology as such, or risk management, or resilience, but there's so much we could have covered. So again, thank you so much. I will invite everybody to carry on and the conversations if you want to reach out to us on social. Visit, of course, the websites of the panelists today. So please visit Glade's website, visit CACBIMA website, and of course, BNP Paribas Personal Finance, including the press release for the great news and the award of BNP Paribas PF. So again, congratulations. Thank you everybody. And I'll see you in the next live meetups as part of our Hack to the Future hackathon. Thank you for your time, and see you soon.
Thank you very
Bye,
much.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.